Feeling friends is this concept that I came up with laying in bed one night. I have all these close friends who have these wonderful stories that can help change the world, life experiences that can help other people believe in themselves, hold tight to their dreams and make their dreams reality. On Feeling Friends, we talk about God, we talk about love, relationships. I have celebrity friends, I have non-celebrity friends. I have church members, family members. But when you watch and listen to Feeling Friends, you will learn and you will laugh. It's a community of friends helping to build each other up. So tune in to Feeling Friends every Sunday on WHCR 90.3 FM, or you can catch me on YouTube at Feeling Friends Radio. All right, I'll see you there. WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. What's up, everybody? It's me, Phil, and I'm so happy to be back live on air. Well, pre-recorded if you're listening on air. But I'm happy to be back with my YouTube friends. I've got a great show for you today. I've got a friend from LA, Regina Robertson. She wrote this wonderful book, He Never Came Home. Interviews, stories, and essays from daughters on life without their father. So without further ado, I'm going to bring into the room Regina R. Robinson. What's up, sister?
Hi, how are you, Phil? It's so good to see you. I love your theme music.
Thank you. Listen, I got to tell you this, and I told you before the show, you made such an impact on me when I was in LA. I moved to LA, y'all, when I was like 25 from New York. I thought I was going to be a star. And my mentor said, don't move to LA. I'm telling you right now. I said, I'm going to make it. And it was such a bad experience for me. It was a learning experience. It was a journey. And I met Regina at her birthday party. She reminded me. And from there, you were so impactful in your words. And we would text each other every now and then. But you always spoke words. And you spoke into me. And I appreciate you. And you never know what that moment meant for me. I'll never forget. I was in my Saturn View at a Pollo Loco in Burbank. And I remember that moment when you
spoke. Of all places.
Of all places. I was on lunch break when I was working at this place. I hated it. So.
Right. We all had that. We've all had that.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm in Culver City.
Yes.
But I want to say something about LA. Mm-hmm. And while I'm glad you came, because whatever experience it was your experience. And you had never done it.
Never done it, yep.
You would never know. So whether you were here, I don't remember how long you were here, but you did it. I was
there for 7 years.
You did it. People never do it.
Yeah, and it's about just stepping out and doing it, right?
Yeah. So I applaud you for doing it, because so many people talk about it and they just never do it. So you did it.
So I appreciate that, and I appreciate meeting you.
No, I know. At my birthday, I remember that. I still have a picture of you. You had a blue shirt on. I was like,
this guy at
my party.
You still have that picture?
It's on Facebook.
Send that picture to me when you get it.
I will. I was like, who's
again, I had the blue shirt on.
Yes, the blue shirt.
I had the blue shirt on. It was in Baldwin Hills at your friends, and I was like, "Oh, this is a nice house." You know,
it was a nice house. I was like, "Who's this guy at my party? He's so cute. Hey, what's your name?" Like, "Oh my God, have some cake." It was. I remember that. Like, it was.
I ate some food. I don't know if you had tacos.
Yeah. It was totally Mexican. I made her Mexican.
Yeah, it was.
I was like, "Do you want cooking?"
Yeah, you have a great memory.
It was so funny.
What are you up to? And I know you have a lot of things going on. Listen, I am so grateful you're on the show, because you are a power player in America, in the world. So
it's all sexy on paper, Phil. It's all sexy on paper. Right now, I write live events. I write some. I work on award shows. I work on web series. Sometimes I work on a fabulous Hollywood luncheon. Yeah. And I'm also thinking of, my next book project, which I have to get out of my head and
on paper
onto my screen. Right. So, it's so funny. The other day I quoted Keke Palmer,
who we love.
I love Keke Palmer. I interviewed Keke Palmer when she was a kid, Akilah and the Bee. And when I see her now, I'm just like, oh my God.
I love that.
But she said that she will do anything. She's like, I'll do a web series, I'll do a movie, I'll do a podcast. And I was like, wow, that's how you get your experiences.
Yes.
And I work on things where people are surprised that I'll be there. I'm like, but yeah, I learned so much today that I want to do everything. I've always wanted to do everything. So
And we're the same way.
Working as a
Everything. They're like, how do you do all of this stuff? It's just my
yeah,
personality. That's just who we
yeah,
are. I think
yeah.
it's the creatives in us, right? We just have to do it, and it just if it calls us, let's do it.
What sign are you?
I'm a Gemini. Don't say nothing crazy.
I,
Hold on, what was that about?
you can do everything because you're like 19 people inside. I mean that with love and admiration.
What side are you? Don't say
I'm a
Scorpio.
Sagittarius. No, a Sagittarius.
Oh, yeah.
And the great thing about Kiki is when she did SNL, she was pregnant, and she was like, "Oh my god!" In her monologue, she was like, "Oh my god!" And it's Sagittarius season. I was like, "It is, sweetie. It is Sagittarius
What y'all known for? Being mean? Are y'all mean?
No, adventurous.
Okay.
Free spirited.
Okay. I'm thinking about Capricorn. That's what I'm thinking about. Because y'all are right. Capricorn's probably
Right. Yeah. So I'm a Sagittarius. I was born on Tina Turner's birthday. I'm a proud.
What day were you born?
November 26th.
So you're like between a Scorpio and Capricorn then.
Yes.
Oh, you're very interesting. That's why you're very interesting.
I'll take that as a compliment.
That's a very interesting person.
When is your birthday?
June 13th. So my birthday is the day before Donald Trump's. It's Donald Trump, Kanye West, and like Tupac. So imagine those personalities like that.
Okay. Yeah.
25. Let's not bring him up here today.
Yeah. True.
So
that's crazy. I mean, Donald Trump I'm from Queens. He's from Queens too. Like,
I know you're from Queens. Okay.
Yeah. And 50 Cent. Me and Curtis. South Jamaica, Queens.
Now, did you grow up with Curtis?
No. I left Queens when I was 10.
Okay.
And I don't know how old he is, but like when he shouts out Jamaica, I'm like, yeah. So Nicki Minaj and Ja Rule and the Lost Boys.
All of them.
LL, Queens.
Yeah, we love that entire New York has just the dynamic of so many great people in the industry. It's a wonderful place to be. Let's talk about that. I mean, you grew up in Queens.
Yes, I was born in Queens. Yeah, it's so funny. I was watching this thing the other day. It was like everyone from New York always shouts out their hospital. I was born at Mary Immaculate Hospital in Jamaica, Queens.
That's a New York thing. We don't say that.
Yeah, it's just a New York thing. On the day that Tina Turner was born.
We love Tina.
We love Tina Turner. Yeah, I was born in Queens, and I'm an only child.
Oh, I'm an only child too. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I'm an only child. Okay. Yeah, I was raised by my mom, and then when I was 10, we moved to Maryland because my mother, till this day, has this love-hate relationship with New York, where she's like had to flee, but then she's always like she was just there last weekend. I'm like, so she was like, New York is no place to raise a child.
It's really not. I've just told somebody that today. It's not a good. I mean, I'm the voice of Harlem. We're here. But I wouldn't raise my kids here. I'm gonna have to go across the bridge if anything, or upstate.
Where are you from?
I'm from Texas. I'm from Dallas originally.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, that's totally two different lifestyles. It's a good place to be young and have money and live your life, but it's not a place to raise kids.
So that was my mother was like a broken record. And as an only child, I'm sure I was very a good eavesdropper, so I would be listening when she was on the phone, and she's like, New York is. And I heard that like it was like a broken record when I was a kid. We moved to Maryland when I was 10.
Okay.
And I stayed through high school, and as soon as I graduated, I was like, "Love you, mean it."
And where did you go after that? After you left Maryland?
I went back to New York, and I went to FIT, and I went straight back to New York because my family, my grandmother was there, my uncle, my cousins in New York. And that was like my early, that's like the quick version. But yeah, I was born in Queens.
So you're born in Queens, and you were raised by a single mother.
Raised by a single mother.
So what was that like? I mean, before we get into your book, what was that like growing up with a single mom? Obviously, you're an amazing person. So she had to be amazing. I'm sure she is an amazing woman. What was that experience like for you?
I don't think I knew anything different. I don't really remember thinking about it. My nuclear family was me, my mom, my uncle, who's 2 years younger than my mother, and my grandmother.
Okay.
And then my grandmother was one of 5. So it was, there was 5 of them. And I had a friend named Michelle. She was my dancing school friend, and we went to school together. And
Mm-hmm.
I would go to her house sometimes, and that's when I realized, like, she lived in a family home, so it was her parents, her
Mm-hmm.
brother, and like her auntie and her grandmother lived upstairs.
And so, for people
And
who don't know what a family home is, well, from my perspective, was it a apartment, multi-family?
yeah, it
It
was
was a
like
multi-family unit. For those that are
yeah.
listening
So
who are not from New York, you have three
yes,
units in one big house, kind of like on Crooklyn, but each floor would be a separate
right.
apartment. Yeah.
And yeah, I remember her grandmother, her auntie, her brother, and her parents. And I would go to her house. Um, and that's when think I started to notice, like, oh wow, her house is different. But she
Right.
was my friend. Like, I didn't think, I didn't, your house is your house. So
Right.
I
Your
wasn't
house, yeah.
really, yeah, I wasn't really thinking about it.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was like me and my mother against the world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So at what point? So let's jump into the book. So what made you
yeah.
write this? He never came home. And I think it's such
Oh,
a powerful. I'm gonna tell you, and I told you this. I posted this online. It says
uh-huh.
he never came home. It's interviews and stories and essays from daughters on life without their fathers, and it's a collection of 22 women, right? 22
Hmm.
women came together and just opened their lives to you. And I tell you, I posted this online, and so many women said this is the story, and I believe you said this too. This is the story of so many Black women
Yeah.
who just
And not just Black women, just women in
women in
general.
general.
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
So what made you say?
I didn't want it to be Black. I mean, I know great fathers, you know what I
Right.
mean? I didn't want it to be about Black men because I think it's something that affects everybody.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you do have
Um,
multiple women. Yeah, you do.
yeah, I've made it a point to do that. And actually, I'll come back to one of my really good friends is a great father,
Hmm.
and he's got boys, but I remember seeing him when his son was a baby.
Mm.
And I remember it was wintertime, and we had gone out to brunch or something. We were going to eat. And I
Hmm.
remember he parked the car. Like, I was in the back seat. Maybe his wife was in the back seat with the baby. Maybe I was in the front seat. But I just remember when we all got out of the car,
Uh-huh.
he hopped up, got the stroller, like the snapping shebang thing,
Yeah.
got the baby together, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And I remember that like it was yesterday
Wow.
because I stood there for a minute, and he was like, "What's wrong with you?"
Mhm.
And I was like, "Oh my god!" And I was like 25,
Yeah.
something like that. I was grown. And I remember seeing that and being like, "Wow, that's what's supposed to happen, right?" But the book. So my first my first job was in the music industry, and after I left, I was like, I moved to LA, and I moved to LA because I was like, I love New York, it's my home, but I
Mhm.
cannot do another winter. I'm gonna hurt
And that's
myself. Like this is
cold. It was cold then. Now it doesn't get cold anymore. It doesn't get we don't have New
yeah.
York winters anymore.
The day that I moved, it was 9 degrees. I was like, I love you all,
But it's
but
time to
I
go.
cannot be here. Yeah, I was like, I cannot be here another minute.
Right, right.
Um, so I moved to LA, and I was, trying to figure out what I was gonna do. And I had this job that I absolutely hate. Well, actually, I loved my job. The
Yeah.
woman I was working with was like, I
Crazy.
call her a micromanaging hoverer. And I was like,
Yeah.
yo, I need you to back up. Like,
Yeah, we hate those.
so, oh, it was terrible. So
Totally
I got
dislike those people.
fired. Oh my God. It was so terrible. And I was sitting there thinking, if I quit, I'm not going to get unemployment. I was just having that, like, what am
Yeah.
I going to do? And I got fired. And I was like, thank you so much. I was like, I gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
So, okay, what are you gonna do? Like,
Right.
what are you? So, I had always been sort of a closet writer.
Mhm.
So I was like, I'll try modeling and I'll try writing, and I'll see which one, which it doesn't matter whichever one starts going, I'm gonna follow it. So
Right.
for a minute they were both here, and then the writing started taking off. And because I worked in the music industry, I had a lot of contacts. So I was doing artist bios and press
Okay.
releases and stuff.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to work at a magazine. So I had a friend of a friend who worked at Honey. His
Mm.
name was Nelson. He worked in ad sales.
Okay.
And he said he would. We were all of us were hanging out one night. He was like, "Oh no, I'll introduce you to some editors." So he did, and I asked this editor. Her name is Deneen Milner. So I said, "What are you looking for?" And she's like, "Just write what you know." So I wrote this feature about women that grew up without their fathers. I was like, "Well, that's what I know."
Yeah.
So I interviewed 3 of my friends, and we changed their names, and the article came out, and I didn't really. It was like, oh my, I just remember it got edited heavily because, ironically, Deneen was like 9 months pregnant. So by the time the story came out, she was on maternity leave. So I don't know who edited it, and I was like, I'm not sure. I don't remember. This is a hard edit, but
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
So the story comes out. I'm like, great. I was on the contributors page. I was like, great. And then my friend, Teresa L. Sanders, I always have to shout her out. She's a publicist, and she called me and she was like, I read your story. Why didn't you should have interviewed me. And I was like, I didn't know that was your story.
Because that's not something people just walk around telling people.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So this was 2001.
Oh wow, 2001.
Yeah, it was Honey Magazine. It was 2001.
Yeah, when you said Honey, I was like, man, that's
yeah.
that was 10th grade for me. Like,
10th grade?
10th grade, no, 10th grade. 10th
Oh,
grade.
I was like, oh my God.
No, 10th grade. It was like 10th grade. I was almost out of school by then. Yeah, I remember Honey.
It still hurts though, but you were in school. I was working. That is so funny. So it's just like Teresa, she called me just like one day, like, girl, why didn't you interview me? And that was like the first time I was like, oh my God, maybe I could write a book. But I had just started writing. Like it was a no. Mm-hmm. So I thought about it over the years, and I kept writing, and then I started working at Essence, and I would talk to a lot of people, and I would just listen to people's stories. And Regina King is someone that I would interview all the time, and she had talked about her father not being around, and being a child of divorce, and her father not being present. So over the years, I would pick up certain things, and I would write a list of people like, oh, they would be interesting to, but I didn't write the proposal until like 2013 or something like that.
That's about 10 years.
2012.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Right. So I wrote the proposal, and I had actually since then I had been contributing to a couple of anthologies. So I knew I knew who the publisher was that I went to, and I got the book deal, and then I had to write the book, and I was like, oh my God, who's going to do this?
Well, that's a wonderful. That's wonderful that you put it out there, and then you got a book deal. That's amazing.
That's the condensed version. It took, writing the proposal is like, it's like a book report on steroids, and I always hated book reports.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's really, it was like, oh my God. But I will say that by the time I was done with the book proposal, I was like, okay, I think I can see what it looks like.
Was it tough, like getting these women to open up, or you just kept that list and they were like, sure, we'll open up and we'll tell you the story?
Well, there's a woman in my book. She's deceased. Her name is Desney E. Butler. She was a family friend. She passed away before the book came out. And I've known Miss Butler. I had known her all my life. She was like my grandmother's age. And I interviewed her. I went to DC. I interviewed her, and her story was incredible. And when she, so I interviewed her, I sat on the floor and I just talked to her. And then when I wrote her story, I remember her, I was like, okay, read it. I'll come back. And I came back in the room, and she was in tears.
Wow.
So I would use Miss Butler as the anchor. I would tell people like, I'm working on this project, blah, blah. Here's one of the women. And when they read her story, they were like, oh yeah, I want to do it.
Do you remember a little portion of Miss Butler's story? We want people to get the book. I want people to get the book.
Oh no.
I've been listening to it, and so it's so to me. But I'm like, dang, I grew up with my dad, but I'm very close to my mother, and people always ask like, where's your dad? Where's your dad? My dad was there my entire life, getting on my nerves, but I felt like he wasn't as present as he should have been. And
Right,
so,
right,
but
right.
so many people, but I'm hearing these stories and when I'm listening to it, I'm like, this is like heartbreaking. Some of them are just,
Yeah.
about just birthdays and not showing up or just forgetting. So for me, I can't imagine someone just forgetting a child and not actually wanting them to be there. But go ahead. Were you about to say something about?
So Miss Butler. Miss Butler was her children are my mom's age.
Okay.
So Miss Butler had children young. She had children young, but her father her parents weren't married, but her father would come to the house and maybe give money, whatever. But she was a daddy's girl, even though he wasn't in
Right.
the house.
Okay.
So she talked about, she said, I don't know why, but I always wanted to have all sons. And she said he had 5 boys.
Wow.
And she talked about getting married and, trying to figure out what her role was like in a marriage. And then being like the matriarch of a family with like 5 boys and a husband,
Right. Yeah, that's a lot.
And she took care of children, and she would tell me, she's like, I can always tell whether the parents are married or not. I can always tell when there are two parents in a kid's life.
Did she
I
say
can just
how she
tell.
could tell? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I don't know if she actually told me.
But she just
She
knew.
could
And
tell.
sometimes you can tell with people. I can tell sometimes. Yeah.
I remember it's so funny. I remember when I think back on this, one of my friends from high school, I was talking to her dad, and he said something to me, and I said, I don't remember what we were talking about, but I
Mhm.
remember him saying, "Oh, you're gonna probably do it on your own." I hear you.
Hmm. He told
Yeah, and I was like, he said that to me.
Wow.
Whatever I was saying I was gonna do,
Mhm.
I must have been like, no, I got it. And he was like, oh yeah, you do. I could see you doing it on your, whatever it was on your own. And
Mhm.
when I think back to that, I was like, I wonder what energy I gave off,
Right.
but I remember him. I don't remember what we were talking about, but he was like, yeah, I could probably see you doing it. It was a compliment. It was
Mhm.
a compliment. Like I wasn't sitting around waiting for
For
anyone.
somebody to do it, you have that internal, like,
Yeah.
I want this happen. Do you find a
Yeah.
lot of Black women have that? Let me say women, because you didn't make this book for Black women. I'm saying it because do you think a lot of women have that internal to say, hey, I'm gonna do it anyway. I don't need a man to help me make it happen, or is that something?
I
So
think some,
mhm.
some not. I
Yeah.
have some friends that aren't like that. But I also think that there's some of it that's like being an only child,
Mhm.
like the hyper independence thing.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
like I was always very in the only child thing to me was always like nobody's coming to get you, no one's coming to save you. So what are you gonna do?
I'm actually the opposite.
Really?
Yeah, I am. Even to this day, I'm like,
Oh.
I can call my parents. I'm always like that, and I think that's an issue for me because I am single and I'm by myself. So it's like, okay, well, who am I going to depend on if I don't have my parents? So I don't
No,
have.
I get
I know to
that.
make it happen for myself. I know I get what you're saying because I'm gonna make it happen. We're
Yeah.
gonna do it, but
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So
Yeah. I think
yeah,
some of that is, you know, when I was growing up, my mom did everything.
yeah, exactly.
So it's some of that and some of like, no one's coming to fix this. No one's coming to, so
That is, I see what you're saying.
yeah. So I think some of that comes from it. But not a lot of people aren't like that. So
When it comes to like women healing, I don't know what you've been through in your life.
mhm.
How in this book do you have stories where women have healed, and how did they overcome this issue for themselves?
Oh yeah.
You know what I
I
mean?
think it's I think it's time
Mhm.
and and a willingness and maybe and forgiving.
Forgiving,
And to me, sometimes forgiving is like cool, like
right?
I'm gonna be cool,
Mhm.
whatever happens. That's my version of forgiveness. Like whatever someone else is doing, like I still have to be okay.
That's one story
Um,
that I was listening to last night where she said where her mom was like, no, you need to go meet your dad for your birthday. And he would always come around for the birthdays. But she got to the point was like, no, I'm cool. I don't need to. But he gave her the cards. I don't know if you do
Yes,
that.
yeah. Uh-huh,
So
uh-huh.
it is about forgiving. And I think you have to get to the point of yourself to say, okay, people make their choices. And so, but I have to make a choice too.
Yeah, people make their choices, and I think as I've gotten older, I realized that, there was this really interesting, post that I saw a long time ago when I was a little kid. It was like a drawing, and it was
Mhm.
a little kid, and he had mixed match shoes on,
Mhm.
and he was holding two people's hands, and it said, you may not feel like you had much,
Mhm.
but your parents gave you all they had. And when you look down, you realize he's wearing his parents' shoes. Like he's wearing one shoe from his father and one shoe from his mother. And I was like, wow, that's deep.
That's deep.
So when I think about my mother, um, like you don't realize when you're a kid, you're like growing up. Your parents are growing up too. You don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't think
Now
about
that we older, we think about that. Like they were
Yeah,
our age trying to figure it out. So I'm like, I can
right,
imagine the kids trying to figure out the life. Yeah.
right.
So you do.
And I remember when I turned 18, was I 18 or 17? I think I graduated from high school or something. And I remember I had gone out to like some senior class thing. And this was like, I got home at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, it was like, I'm
Yeah.
kind of grown at this point.
You need
And
to
my
work.
mother, I mean, like, what are you going to say? Like, I'm 17, 18, like, I just graduated high school. I went to this thing, like,
Okay.
you knew
Yeah.
where I was. Like, you knew
Right,
where I was. And my mother said to me, something like, so how did I do? I was like, what are you talking about? She was like, how did I do as a parent?
right. Wow.
And I was like, I didn't know how to answer it. I was like, what? I thought she was, I'm like, are you serious? Like, you want me to answer that right now? And I think I started to see my mother as like a human being at a
Oh,
certain point. Like, oh, right. Like you were a whole person. You were a whole person before
yeah.
I got here.
You know, my
So,
mom told me that. She was like, "You don't know me." She said, "You don't know," and I said,
right,
"Oh, yes,
right,
I
right.
do." She's like, "No, you don't. You don't know me. I don't know the person before I came,
Yeah,
and now that
right.
I've been gone for 18 years, or
Yeah,
plus 18 plus years. So that is true. That's a good point.
yeah.
Yes, it seems like your mother was a very wise woman, and she just. I want to meet her one day.
And really, she's really cool. She was at the party. She was at my birthday party.
Okay. Oh, what's
Yeah. She's my mother is cool and she is supportive and
yeah.
she used to always say, all I did was take you to dance class, all this other stuff you do. I don't know where that came from. But she always says that. But she supported me. Um she's always supported me, like whatever I wanted to do.
Absolutely, and that's
She's like,
important.
just do it. Like just
Do it and do
she'll
it.
listen and she'll listen and then she's like, okay, so what are you gonna do? And I remember I remember when I was in high school, I got in trouble with my guidance counselor or something. And I knew like I got to a point where it's like all I needed was English to graduate.
Mhm.
And I remember like, they call my mother in, like it was like some whole thing. And it's like I knew what I had to do. So they're telling my mother like what a terrible person I am, right? And I was just like, whatever.
Right.
And she listened and she said to me, she said something to me. Yeah, I can't. I was like, I know. Like, I know. And she turned back to my guidance counselor and she said, she knows what she has to do. Like, you didn't have to call me in here. She knows what she has to do and she'll do what she has to do. Like, are
Absolutely.
we good? And I
Are we
was
good?
like,
Why did
right. Like,
y'all
I
right?
don't know why there's this whole performance. Like,
Right.
I mean, the guidance counselor made me seem like I never came to school. I was like, it's just about English. Like, it's just about practice. But
Right.
my mother was like, she knows what she has to do. I'm gonna let her do what she has to do. Like we didn't need to do all this. So my mother is kind of like that.
I
She
love
kind of leaves me, yeah, she lets me like I have to figure it out. Like figure it
it.
out.
Figure it out.
Yeah,
You better figure
yeah.
it out.
You better
But
figure
you
it
know what?
out. Like
You are that person though that you're gonna figure it out. But a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people don't have that trust, and a lot of So that's a good thing. I want to talk about. You've had a very successful career. To me, I know you've
hey.
been very successful in your life, and people, like you said, on paper, yes.
On paper it's so sexy.
Listen, what
Yeah.
would you say to a young person who's trying to get to this level of success? or just trying to get out of their head and get to a happy place, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
Stay open, you know, and like you kind of never know. It's like you should know what you want to do. I have an idea what you want to do, but things change and you have to be flexible and you have to flow. You can't be so rigid that like if it doesn't happen like how you lined it up, it's never gonna happen. It can be like something that you never envision. I'll give you an example. When I was, I grew up on magazines. I wanted to be a model. I wanted to like be in magazines. I don't know what it meant, but when I was in New York, I had done some tests. I did a test shoot, and when I started writing, I was like, I have pictures I can, for the contributors page. I'm like, I have pictures I can use. And I remember one day, one of my photos and it was, I don't know who was on the cover. Maybe it was Will and Jada. Like, yeah.
Huge.
And I think it was Will, yeah. And at the time it was huge. And I remember my picture was, one of these pictures was on the contributors page. Big. And I was like, wow. I said I wanted to do it. And this is what it looked like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I said I wanted to be in a magazine, in this world somehow. And it turned out that my picture is on this page because I'm a writer and I'm writing cover stories. Yeah. So that's why it's important to, it may not look how you think it's going to look, but if you keep working, it will be something.
And speaking,
but I would say be focused and like do your work.
Yeah. That's important.
I really did my work. Yeah, I did my work. So now it's like I was just cleaning out some like an office space that I have, and I found like I've saved like transcripts from my cover stories, just things that like I was just and I was like, wow. Not to say that other people don't work hard. I'm just talking about my experience, and I was like, wow, you really did a lot of work.
But it comes out in what you do. Like if you're a lackluster writer, you are going to make it at the top.
Yeah.
If you don't put it all. But we live in this society. We didn't have Instagram. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have
right.
I don't know if you wanted the typewriter age. We had some old computers, those old Apple Clear computers. You probably had one of those. People were working. People were really on the grind. Yeah. They were on the phone calling people. You had to network at parties. You had people. Yeah. People had Rolodexes. So it's this generation. And I was a teacher for a while. They didn't have the ingenuity, but I mean they do have it, but it's a different type of world now.
Yeah, it's a different, but even in the Instagram world, like do your research. It's all here. YouTube is all here.
Yeah, it is.
Like you should. It's like all. You don't have to go. I used to spend so much time at the library. Like it's all right here. So you should know even more.
Even more, and with you too, you treat people right. How you
tried.
People right, and your name will go a long way. If your name is Mud, it will travel because those circles are. Yeah. What I learned in LA, those circles are small. Listen, you know everybody, and the next person you don't know is everybody. So you don't know. You have to treat people right. You got to, do the best you can, and try not to lie, try not to cheat people because it'll show back up, right?
Oh my God, yes. Like I can't even remember lies. Like I'm amazed by liars, but can I just say one thing? I have the news on. I'm like trying not to watch the news. But the one interesting thing about Donald Trump that I learned is like, oh my God, you could literally look at somebody and lie and be like, what? I'm like, oh my God, like you have no shame. Oh my, like
my friend told me, she said we aren't those kinds of people, so we can't rationalize how they think. You can't. If you're not a crook, if you're not raised to be a crook, you will never understand what it's like to be a demented crook. So that's not even because he can look you in your face and lie and go
and lie.
Yeah,
fascinated by that. Like I could never. Yeah. Like oh my, not that I wouldn't be. Lying is just. It's just not my thing.
If you had a time machine, If you had a time machine, you can go back and talk to 16-year-old Regina. What would you tell her?
Oh, I would tell her to go back to dance class.
Really? Why is
I
that?
would go to. I stopped dancing at one point, and I thought I would go back to it, and I did for a little while. But you know, it's funny. I had so many careers. Like when I was a kid, I wanted to be. I thought I was a pediatrician, but I really wanted to work in the maternity ward with the babies.
Okay.
So I wanted to do that. I wanted to be an advertising executive. I wanted to be a model. I mean, like everything you can name under the sun. And I wanted to be a dancer. I mean, like everything. And I've done a lot of things, but I wish that I wish I would have stayed in dance class a little longer. I don't know. I got distracted and, you know, being a teenager. And I did dance like through college, but I just felt like at the time, like dancers weren't respected. And it's like, how am I like really going to be a starving artist? Like, really? Like, you could be a starving artist in New York back then. You can't do it anymore.
You can't do it. There's no room for starving artists. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do it. But yeah, I would say go back. You stay in dance class. Like, go stand on the bar and lift up. And get your life together.
Listen, I think about that Fresh Prince of Bel-Air episode when Vi was dancing, when Bill was dancing.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy. So I would say that, and 16. What was I doing at 16? I mean, I had fun, but probably have a little bit more fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so.
Enjoy life, right?
Yeah, like I would. Yeah, I did do a lot of stuff, but I wish I would have had a little bit more fun.
Yeah,
a little bit.
This has been a great show. I mean, I can see. You know, if people ever meet you, it's like you just talking to you like your best friend. You know, you just catch up, and life was just so good. And you know, I just want to say thank you to you again.
Oh my God, thank you.
Like life into people, and tell people how to get this book and how people can reach you. And you know, I'm sure people want to know about your next work.
The book you can get on Amazon.com. Regina R. Robertson. He Never Came Home. You can get it at Bookshop too. I think everyone talks about going to Bookshop. And on Instagram, I'm Regina R. Robertson. I still call it Twitter. I'm Regina Robertson.
Right, yeah.
I think that's everything. But I will say this. On Twitter, I couldn't get my R in there, but Regina R. Robertson is very important. My middle initial is very important to me because my mother's middle name is Regina.
Okay.
My middle name is Renee. Okay. And I found out like maybe like 10, 15 years ago that it was my grandmother who said, oh, I think Renee would go good with Regina. Oh, wow. So the R is for my mother and my so I swear by my R. So Instagram I had room for my R in my handle. So Instagram is Regina R. Robertson.
You should write a book called use Regina Renee. I love that name.
Thank you. You know what's crazy? Regina King's name is Regina Renee too.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Tell Regina we said, hey, we love Regina King.
Oh my God.
And she has a story in the book as well. So you guys check
a story in the book. Yeah. And I have to say Joy Ann Reed wrote the foreword.
My mom watches every night.
Yeah, me too. I watch the news. Like I'm like
you're newshead, I see.
Oh my God. In LA, she comes on at 4. So I'm like, I start my news day at 4.
Okay.
But Joy Ann Reed wrote the foreword. Some of my Essence editors my fellow Essence editors are in there. Simone I. Smith is in the book. And just some great writers and some great women that I found. I did a lot of outreach and I'm really proud of it. When I look back on it, and the Audible came out, the book came out in 2017 and I fought for an Audible version. And that just came out on the 6th anniversary of the book last June. So thank you for listening.
I'm still listening.
The book.
It's very intense. It's very good. It's very healing. It's very healing. Listen, before we go, I want you to leave the audience with a final thought.
Yes.
To take for a minute. I'm gonna step away for a couple seconds, and I want you to go ahead and talk to the audience and lead them with a final.
Oh, my final thought.
Yeah.
About life?
About anything.
About,
You want them to take with them, that they can grow with.
oh my God. I don't want you to step away though. I would feel alone.
I'll stay here. I'll stay here.
Yeah. My final thoughts about life. One question I ask, over the years, I've talked to a lot of people, talked to Quincy Jones, like people, like so many people.
Yeah.
And I used to always ask, like, what keeps you motivated and focused on what you're doing? And I always think, like, what you asked me about 16-year-old Regina.
Mm.
I'm always trying to please actually 6-year-old Regina.
Mm.
And after what we've been through in the last 4 or 5 years, and still going through because it's a really rough time, I think, it's important to tap into what makes you happy.
Right.
And fulfilled, whatever that is. It's different for, everybody, but yeah. And what is it that keeps you moving forward? You have to tap into that, because these are some really intense times. And turn down the noise and find out what that is. Like, I go for walks all the time. I go to the beach all the time. Just like get it.
You have
like,
peace.
Get it.
Listen, you have that peace, and that peace is just it radiates through you.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate
so I
you.
think those are my final words. What are you gonna say?
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Oh my God, thank you.
We gotta hang out next time you come to your call, man, so we can go get some.
I totally will. I only come to New York when I can wear a sundress. Like, y'all got to get the weather
It's almost
together.
there. It's hot. It's starting to be nice. It's nice.
Okay.
You were here last time. It was cold, but now it's nice. So
okay.
Hold tight for me in the green room, okay?
Okay.
All right. I want to thank my friend Regina Renee Robertson for coming on. Listen, go grab her book. Tap into what you believe in. Tap into it. Go follow your dreams, follow your heart, and treat people right, like my friend Regina. You're listening to Phil and Friend right here on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.